Last time we met, we talked about this idea of bittersweet. It's the idea that when someone hurts us or wrongs us, sometimes it feels really sweet to hold on to the bitterness against them. We said that as good as it may feel at the time, there is a better way. And that actually the sweet thing is to let go of that bitterness, to learn to take things that are done to us and to make something better come out of them. But of course, that's easier said than done. We can talk all day long about how good the idea of forgiveness sounds, but when it comes to actually doing it, that's a whole nother story. I mean, seriously, think of the last time someone did something to hurt you, or when something happened to you that you thought was unfair. Chances are you didn't have to think very long or very hard to come up with a time when you hurt someone or where someone treated you unfairly, right? In fact, chances are we've even experienced this kind of hurt or letdown with ourselves. We expect ourselves to act in a certain way or break a certain habit or get better at something, and over again we let ourselves down. We fail to meet our own expectations. When this happens, we get stuck with this tape inside our head playing and replaying that makes us feel stupid or reminds us of our wrongs, so we keep beating ourselves up for getting it wrong again and again and again. But no matter how we react, the truth is the same. Because of the unfairness or the hurt, a relationship with somebody is broken, damaged, and not right in some sort of way. Everything we do is a reaction to that. We find small ways to be dismissive or rude to them, saying like, you do you, telling people that that person is canceled, or setting out to get revenge however we can. And in a lot of ways, our reactions feel justified. But that just leaves us with a question. Where do we go from here? If they were wrong and we were right, does that mean that we are justified in how we treat them, no matter how bad that may be? Does that mean we are off the hook and won't be held responsible for how we handle our relationships with them? Does that mean that we get a pass for some of our most hateful behavior because of what they did? I mean, not being mad or being frustrated or creating distance almost seems like you are saying that what was done to you was okay, right? And the last thing that you want is to send a message that you are okay with how you were treated, or that the person can keep treating you like that because it wasn't that big of a deal. In situations like this, the idea of forgiveness seems weak and irresponsible and completely unfair. And to further justify our response to being treated poorly, we think things like, aren't I supposed to be more like Jesus? And wasn't Jesus the one flipping tables in the temples where people got it wrong that one time? I want to be like the table flipping Jesus when I'm angry. Listen, we get it. Forgiveness can feel like a cop-out. That's why today we're going to look at a passage from a book called Romans, which was a letter from the Apostle Paul, and he wrote it to a church in Rome. Rome was the very heart of the largest empire that ever existed in history. It's the New York City of its day. And this letter was written to the people there who had just started following Jesus. So put yourself in their shoes for just a minute. These new believers, found themselves surrounded by people who were as far from being followers of Jesus as possible. In fact, Christianity was a new religion, and it was spreading fast. And the leaders of Rome didn't like the growth that they saw and didn't see it as a good thing. You might feel like the Roman leaders were the enemy, and you were just an innocent citizen. You were in the right, and you should have freedom to get even or get mad or hold a grudge for how you're being mistreated. Because if anyone is the problem here, it's the powerful Romans. They had the power. They were doing the things that were unfair. But Paul doesn't give the Christians there a pass to be angry or bitter. In fact, he changes everything and changes the focus entirely about them. He says, it isn't about the people who are persecuting you, it's about you. And here is what he writes. In other words, he says to them, maybe there's another way to look at the situation. We're no longer focused on making a case for what's fair and unfair, what's just or unjust when it comes to how the Christians were being treated. We're talking about God's love for you. See, when you understand who God really is, it changes everything, even how you see forgiveness. The truth is, when we have gotten it all wrong, when we have done plenty to deserve punishment, when we didn't deserve it, God extended love. God didn't hold back. God saw you and me at our very worst and didn't even flinch. He moved in our direction by sending Jesus with no conditions. When we start to realize how God's forgiveness and our wrongs against him and chooses to love us no matter what, then we have to ask ourselves, what does that mean for how I see others who have hurt me, others who have treated me unfairly? Paul answers this question for us in his letter to the church of Colossae. Bear with each other. Okay, what does that mean? That is a picture of carrying a weight of each other's imperfections together. It's this picture of patient commitment to seeing each other as human instead of villains, even when that's super challenging to do. Because of what God has done for us, which is extend love and forgiveness at all costs, we're called to do the same for others. To forgive as we've been forgiven, with no strings attached, no conditions, with nothing held back. The truth is, this can be hard for us to accept when it comes to how we see and treat others, but it can be just as difficult when it comes to how we see and treat ourselves. For some of us, we're much harder on ourselves than we are on others, right? And for us, Paul says the exact same thing. Jesus isn't stingy with his love or his forgiveness, so you shouldn't be either. He offers you and I both the same love and forgiveness at the same time, and if God has forgiven us, if God has made us right and sees us as we were meant to be, and we should see ourselves the exact same way. But here's what that doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that we treat what we have done or what has been done to us as no big deal. Paul isn't downplaying the root of the problem or excusing the wrong we did or the wrong against us. He's saying whatever was done to you, however unfair it is, that was real and it was a big deal. But just as God looks at you and the mistakes that you have made and sees you as more than the stuff that you've done wrong, we need to see people who have done and treated us unfairly as more than the thing that they've done wrong too. God set the standard here, and God's forgiveness tells us exactly how we should see others and see ourselves. You could say it this way: when it comes to forgiveness, we want to cancel the debt and not the person. So how do we cancel the debt and not the person? How do we stop being so hard on others and ourselves when they get it wrong or when we get it wrong? How do we bear with each other like Paul talks about? How do we stay focused on God's unstopping love? Well, here's 3 places to start. First, identify where you need more compassion in your life. Maybe you're way harder on yourself than others, and forgiving yourself is much harder for you to do. Maybe you need more compassion for others. Determine which you tend to lean towards and pay attention to that. Figure out the areas where you might need to show more compassion, then work on practicing that compassion in your life. Second, identify who you're beating up. Get specific. Is it you? Is it your mom, your third period teacher, your old football coach? Who are you mentally canceling or only seeing as the wrong that they did? What do you need to do to start seeing them or yourself as God sees you? As someone worthy of all the love and forgiveness that He has given. Third, remember, no one's perfect. Whether you're holding yourself or someone else to that standard, it is impossible to meet and will only lead in disappointment and frustration. People will let you down. You will let yourself down. We cannot control that. What we can control is how we handle ourselves when we're let down or hurt or disappointed. Can we forgive others? Can we forgive ourselves? Can we make the effort to seek forgiveness out from those we may have hurt? In other words, no one is going to get it 100 all the time. But we can get really, really good at making it right when things go wrong. And we do that when we cancel the debt and not the person. We do that when we remember that people are more than their mistakes, and there is more to a story than just their wrongdoings. We do that when we remember God hasn't held out our wrongs against us, and we shouldn't do that to other people either. Remember, speak up if there is a hurt. Forgiveness never means letting someone abuse or hurt themselves, you, or others. This is your reminder that the next step in forgiving could look like finding a trusted adult to talk to and seeking help that you or someone you know needs. For everybody, forgiveness is a challenge. It doesn't come naturally, and it will probably never be easy. In fact, it will probably always be easier to cancel a person than it is to cancel their wrong. But this idea of forgiveness is something that we need to do because of what God has done for us. As unnatural and difficult as it may feel, we don't give up on it because it was modeled first for us by our God. Remember, forgiveness is the best thing you can do with the worst stuff that happens to you.